Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. One thing he did mention in my my little resume was I did do a couple years of lobbying for a firm in Washington called BGR Group, which is Haley Barbour started. He's governor of Mississippi, you may recall. That was a great job. I did a lot of transportation work there. Actually, one of my clients was the Association of American Railroads, which was a lot of fun, and JetBlue. So I had, you know, a little bit of both. Also had the air traffic controllers, so I got everything covered there. And then when I retired, and I did retire after COVID, and Governor DeSantis appointed me to the Florida Transportation Commission, which oversees Florida DOT and all of their budgets and their 5-year work plan, and that was a great job. I loved it. Didn't pay anything, but it was fun. I was really excited to come back and join the Trump administration. I wasn't expecting it, which is the best way for things to go, right? I don't actually have to apply for the job; they just call, and that was really nice. I was honored that happened. And as you know, so I'm going to talk a little bit about policy. I'm going to talk a little bit about passenger rail. I know that's not a subject we want to talk about here, but we might try and talk about it. But FRA, you know, we have a major mandate, which is safety. We have dual mandates, really: promoting safety, promoting the railroad industry, supporting innovation, supporting infrastructure, and supporting an efficient rail network. A couple of facts and figures I want to give you. 2025 was the safest year in history for derailments and employee casualties. We're proud of the work that FRA has done to make that a reality. From day one, the Trump administration and Secretary Sean Duffy have been clear. Our support for rail safety is unwavering, and that commitment is backed by decisive policy action, strong leadership. So a safe rail system is the foundation for growth and innovation. And I'm proud to say that the safety of our industry has dramatically improved over time. And here's some facts you'll be interested in. Consider that in 1976, there were over 80,000 total reportable rail accidents and incidents, while in 2025, that number was 9,800. Employee deaths in 1976 was 100. In 2025, it was 8. In 1976, employee on-duty injuries was 56,314. 2025, 3,043. And derailments in 1976, 7,969 derailments. In 2025, 974. Quick story. So we had the East Palestine incident. Secretary Duffy comes into office. If you recall, the former administration got a lot of criticism after the derailment in East Palestine. The Secretary Buttigieg did not go to visit the site till long after it happened. In fact, Donald Trump went there before he did to visit. So here we are, new administration, we're in office. We want to do everything right. We want to make sure the optics are correct. David Fink is our new administrator. We have a derailment, not a major one, but we have one. Secretary Duffy's office calls us, does the secretary need to go? Does he need to go? Does he need to go visit? Need to go visit. And David says, tell him, hold on. This happens every day. We have derailments in this industry just about every day. So I'll tell him when it's important to go. Freight rail safety record, we're very thankful that it's still on a positive trajectory. It illustrates how far we've come and how safe trains are as a mode of transportation. So there have been similar long-term improvements in nearly every other category and metric, but the FRA is deeply committed to lowering those numbers even more. We're using data in a new and innovative way. We want to make regulatory oversight and evidence data-based. Our data team is continuously mining accident and incident statistics, inspection reports, and other inputs to optimize field observations. Track inspections, motive power and equipment, signal and train control, operating practices, hazmat, and highway rail grade crossings. Now, to accomplish and accelerate this trend of increasing safety, we're pushing forward on several fronts, despite the chorus of skeptical voices. One notable example has been a successful implementation of positive train control, which started under the first Trump administration when Ron Vittori was the FRA administrator. Since PTC was fully adopted, there hasn't been a single high-fatality passenger collision. That alone is a huge accomplishment. But we're not stopping. We're aggressively pursuing new technologies that improve rail safety, efficiency, and reliability for workers, passengers, and communities. Let me go into a little bit about discretionary grants. As you know, we have a lot of grant programs out there. The Trump administration is working to review grant funding opportunities. Under Secretary Duffy, we're focused on vastly accelerating the obligation of our existing grants, some of which were announced years ago by the Biden administration, and they were not acted upon. When we showed up in January of 2025, FRA had over 3,000 grants that were not cleared by the Biden administration. We formed a grant review task force, and we cleared all of those grants out within 6 months. By August of, that's more than 6 months, 8 months, by August of 2025, all 3,200 of those grants. At the same time, putting together the notifications for our new grants that we put out. Last month, we issued a $1.1 billion notification for the Crossing Safety Program, formerly known as the Rail Crossing Elimination Program. The deadline for that is June 8th, if anybody's interested in applying for that. Similarly, in April, we issued a NOFO for $4.7 billion rail projects on the Northeast Corridor under the Fed-State Partnership Program, which we now call the National Railroad Partnership. And the day before that, we issued a NOFO for the most popular grant program, which everybody knows about, CRISI, for $2.04 billion, and those applications are due June 22. So we encourage all eligible entities to consider this huge funding opportunity, and also want to say we're moving fast. You know, that RCE program, we only gave 45 days to do the grant, 60 days for the CRISI program. Prior to that, we were kind of going 90 days, weren't we? So we not only don't want those applications, we want to get them out the door more quickly. We're going to be seeing announcements on our FSP, Railroad Partnership Program, soon. That's this summer for sure, which is very fast since we closed that in February. That was the $5 billion program, and I'm sure some people in this room applied for that. So, and we're holding NOFO webinars online, and on a related front, we're also worried about environmental permitting, and how do we speed that up? We're making great strides, we think, on project implementation. So I think we can all agree that it shouldn't take years, and certainly not decades, to advance the rail project. What did I hear about one today? 11 years to get a permit to build a bridge, and we built it in 11 months. That has to stop. So it's a priority of the Trump administration to work with the states to increase efficiencies, including NEPA assignment. I know our highway department is working with states to accept NEPA assignment so the states can take care of the NEPA and be the one agency that makes the decisions. So now we, the Federal Railroad Administration, is going to the states asking for them to take assignment for rail projects. I had a conversation with the Secretary of FDOT just 10 days ago, asking Florida to take responsibility for rail NEPA, and I think they're going to do it. I think it's a very important project. It helps us move projects more quickly, get those things done. We have a goal of 2 years, and you know, you may recall in Trump 45, he signed an executive order, 13807, in case you want to look it up, that created one federal decision with the goal of having all NEPA completed in 2 years. One of those executive orders that President Biden signed was to repeal that, and we still have not been able to really bring us back to the one federal decision. But we're committed to making gains in these areas. So we have a plan to deliver on modernizing the environmental review process, reforming NEPA regs, transforming how we process categorical exclusions. And my experience when I worked for Brightline Trains, that just drove me crazy, how we had a 125-year-old rail corridor that we were historically putting it back to its historic origins under Section 106 and 4F by putting that second track back that was removed when passenger rail ended in 1968. And we had to go through an environmental assessment process and an EPA that took 4 years to using an existing corridor. We were doing no extra damage, but there were some scrub jays, little birds in Florida, that were nearby that we had to protect. We're also exploring opportunities to expedite the Section 106 process, which was one of those popular programs for NIMBYs to use to stop the project. We want to advance NEPA assignment, as I mentioned, and we want to make sure that we have the resources to provide the technical assistance for everyone to get that accomplished. On passenger rail, related to passenger rail development, there are a few other significant initiatives I want to talk about. Secretary Duffy established 2 rail infrastructure priorities this year: the New York Penn Station transformation and the revitalization of Washington's Union Station. FRA and Amtrak are advancing early activities to renovate and modernize the stations, increase concourse capacity, access and enable safer and more efficient station operations, expand passenger services, and deliver a world-class passenger rail experience. That's the Penn transformation. We are going to see, we put Amtrak in charge of that. We took New Jersey Transit out of the picture. We have a real talented fellow named Andy Byford who is leading that project for Amtrak. We expect to make a decision on a master developer for Penn Station probably in June. That's the goal. It's certainly this summer. We're also revitalizing Washington Station. It's a top priority for the administration. Washington Union Station is the gateway to Washington, D.C. When you get off the train, you get out Union Station, you see the Capitol, you see the House Office buildings, you see the Library of Congress, you see a dilapidated, first of all, until we got there a year and a half ago, you saw nothing but homeless tents all around the front of Union Station. We saw a Christopher Columbus monument there with graffiti, and the fountains weren't working, and it was falling apart. We cleared all that out. The statues and the fountains are being restored, and we're making Union Station beautiful again, big and beautiful again. So this is part of our a top priority. Department of Interior is involved with that as well. The Department and FRA are also working with Amtrak and Union Station Redevelopment Corporation to repair and expand the interior of Union Station, but also the exterior. The roof is falling in. You wouldn't believe the infrastructure in that, how it's falling apart in that area. Now I want to talk a little bit about Amtrak and intercity passenger rail. Amtrak has experienced a record-breaking fiscal year in 2025. Their ridership in the whole NEC ridership was about 15+ million trips. The NEC grew about 8.1% in ridership compared to FY 2024, fully recovering from the previous year's declines. The key drivers in the Northeast Regional Service, they carried 12 million passengers, a 33% increase. Overall, Amtrak achieved a total of 34.5 million passengers across all routes and a record $2.7 billion in ticket revenue. The problem with Amtrak, and if you're riding the Northeast Corridor, the trains are full. Somebody was telling me today, I had to pay a lot of money for that ticket, but the train is full. They're charging premium prices, and people are using Amtrak in the Northeast Corridor. The problem they have is capacity. They need more. We need more rail cars. We need longer trains. We need more trains, and we're working on getting that. We've ordered, additional aero cars, which the first batch were delivered. They'll be starting on the Cascades route, and now they're starting to be delivered to be on the Northeast Corridor. We've ordered 800 new cars for the long-distance fleet. You may have heard that we're getting rid of the superliners. Basically, no one's making them anyway. When the Amtrak asked them to redesign a new superliner, they thought, well, we need to be ADI compliant, so we'll put an elevator in it. Well, we looked at it and said, this is an absurd idea, putting an elevator in a train, so we're not going to do that. So we canceled the superliners. We want standardized train sets across the long-distance routes so we can move equipment around as needed, and that's what we're doing with the 800 new cars that we recently ordered. Last August, we have started the new Mardi Gras service. Somebody mentioned that earlier today. Extremely successful with the ridership. We're very pleased about that. The numbers far exceeded the original estimates, didn't they, John Robert? It was amazing. I was happy to go, delighted to go on the inaugural run. It was a lot of fun. But we are working to look at Amtrak structure and maybe restructure that a little bit. So we're working on an Amtrak restructuring program that will basically bring more accountability to Amtrak, more transparency to Amtrak and their budgets and their numbers. Amtrak really is a very large construction management firm. It's one of the largest construction management firms in the country, but they operate trains. So we want them to operate trains. We don't want to privatize Amtrak. We want to operate good trains. We want qualified people to know how to do the construction management. We want to look at their equipment pool and unify that so we can have a pool equipment leasing program, so not only Amtrak can get what they need, but the folks, the states who are in the Fed-State Partnership Program who need equipment may be able to draw down from that equipment pool. So we're looking at keeping the holding company together, but dividing it up with separate CEOs so that Amtrak people can do what they do best, operate trains, do it better, and improve their customer service. back to basics vision is what we want for Amtrak. We want a strong intercity network. We want to meet the everyday needs of travelers, and we don't need arbitrary benchmarks created by the bureaucrats. That's where I work. That means advancing high-speed rail when and where it makes sense. Under this administration, the FRA has been thoughtful and prudent as we consider where best to put our resources on intercity passenger rail and high-speed rail. The Brightline West project, I used to work there, so I'm kind of, leaning toward that in terms of my favorite projects. But I like Texas too. It's very nice. You guys, they're here in the room. The Brightline project is a public-private partnership, Brightline West really, with more private money going into than public money. Administrator Fink was quoted at a P3 conference a couple of weeks ago that he said that really the only chance of high-speed rail right now in the United States, I think, in the next decade, is Brightline West. So, in my view, though, we shouldn't expect the government to shoulder 100% of the costs of a high-speed rail project, as in California, which was poorly planned, poorly executed, and has zero private investment. But it's also not reasonable to expect that the private sector is actually able to build something like that by themselves. So public-private partnership is where we need to go. The California high-speed rail as a project was not one that we wanted to support. I wish them well. I hope they're able to get it done, but we're not right now not going to participate. We're not saying no to high-speed rail. This administration is not saying no to high-speed rail. We're saying yes to projects that are well-planned, cost-effective, and make sense. The California's latest cost estimate was about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago? New estimates of $231 million in new cost. That's $467 million a mile to build that railroad. Brightline Florida system was built now. It's been 10 years since they started, so the money's a little bit different. But in total, that cost $25 million a mile to build, except for a 35-mile section, which was Greenfield, which cost them $45 million a mile. That's the low end. California was the highest. The other systems are somewhere in between. Texas Central obviously does have private investment, and those are the kinds of the project. Now we're calling it Texas High-Speed Rail Holdings, right, gentlemen? So thank you. I got that right, Andy. But that's another example of what could be a public-private partnership. Right now, really more private. So I think that we're in a good position to get some of these projects moving. Brightline model is very different, though, from all the other projects, and that's why I think it's so cost-effective. They use existing right-of-way. They use an existing railway in Florida. In California and Nevada, they're using the middle of Interstate 15. Brightline's extension to Tampa, they're going down the middle of Interstate 4. So there's no private property to acquire. All those expenses were gone. The EIS process is much simpler, hopefully. And so that I think is a model that we should look at in other parts of the country. Existing right-of-ways. The press does not tell you, because a lot of people said to me, well, Brightline's in financial trouble, so how are we getting around that? Well, I have something to tell you. Brightline, first of all, is on a positive growth trajectory. They've had double-digit gains in ridership every month for the past 18 months. And their first quarter 26 numbers are remarkable. They carried just under 1 million people in the first 3 months of this year, and they made an operating profit. Now, does anybody know how many people Acela carried in 2025? I'll tell you. 3.1 million the Acela carried. Brightline in 2025 carried 3.1 people. In the first quarter of 2026, Brightline carried more people than Acela. So, yes, they're having financial difficulties because they used all private money, expensive bond money, to pay for it, and now they got to pay that back. So the balance sheet is really out of whack. So they're probably going to have to go for some restructuring. They may have to declare bankruptcy. I don't know. They're working on it. FRA is in touch with Brightline and Brightline West all the time and monitoring carefully what they're doing. But I will say this: I think that they will thrive. They will survive. My hats off to them for what they did, because I think for anybody to start a railroad from scratch hadn't been done in 100 years, and that's an accomplishment that I think we need to applaud, and we need to keep pressing more people to take that kind of risk. These are the kind of the risks that we used to take in America, to build great things, big things. I used to say the chairman of Fortress, who financed Brightline, is channeling Henry Flagler, if everybody knows who that guy is. So we're real excited about that. On passenger rail, I have to tell you, my opinion is that I think passenger rail is being rediscovered. I think we are in a passenger rail renaissance. People will not flock to rail if it's not reliable and if it's not punctual. People will not switch to rail if it isn't frequent, if it isn't comfortable, if it isn't clean, if it isn't convenient. That's the product that we're bringing. That's the product that Amtrak's trying to bring. We're trying to improve it. That's the product that everybody else wants to bring. And I think if we build it, they will come. The last thing I want to touch is on surface reauthorization. And we have great news because that, as somebody may have heard, that bill was finally dropped yesterday. We've been waiting for it. A lot of politics in the reauthorization bill, a lot of politics. Fortunately, this bill has turned out to be a little bipartisan, which we kind of like. I got a chance to read a bit of it this afternoon on politics. So I have a little quote on politics that quote by an English gentleman named Ernest Benn, who was a British writer. He said, "Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies." I think that's a great line. I love that. So the highway bill, transportation bill is out, and let me give you a couple of facts. I wrote them down. So it's called the Build America 250 Act. I like that. Total of $64 billion for FRA and Amtrak. That's a pretty good number. The bill combines the Intercity Passenger Rail Grant Program, combines the National Intercity Passenger Program with the Restoration and Enhancement Program. So that combines those two programs. It does keep CRISI and the Rail Crossing Elimination Program. CRISI has 1.7, this is an average because it's a 5-year bill, but it's about $1.7 billion for CRISI. The Rail Crossing Elimination Program, which we just call crossings, is $675 million average for the next 5 years. Amtrak, the Northeast Corridor gets wouldn't 21 be nice? $2.1 billion. The National Network, $4.3 billion. Amtrak gets $6 billion per year. They're creating a new program called the Emergency Relief Grant Program. That's operations or capital to rehab, repair, replace infrastructure that the Secretary deems is in danger of catastrophic loss. That's a kind of a neat program. I think that's going to be very interesting to see how we do that. They have another new program called the Rail Technology and Asset Pilot Program, and it's to help pay for certain new technological systems that come out. The bill allows CRISI and FSP funds to pay, I like this one, it allows CRISI funds and federal state partnership funds to pay for the credit risk premium under the Railroad Rehabilitation Infrastructure Program. It also puts $323 million cap on the liability, which I think is very important to the railroads. We talked about that earlier today. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you today, to give some of Administrator Fink's message to you, and hopefully a little bit good news on how we approach passenger rail in the future.